These are the listed holy days that Jesus did. Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and Pentecost or Feast of Weeks. That's the spring feast that he did. And we're in that spring feast, and we're in this one right here. This is the spring feast. Here, hold that. Thank you. And that was Passover right there. And then there's 7 days of unleavened bread follow that. And we're right here. We're on the 4th of April. This is the Great Sabbath. Now, after Jesus was born in the Middle Ages, the Jews changed that Great Sabbath to be the Sabbath before Passover, because they didn't want the Great Sabbath to be the Sabbath before he rose from the dead. And this right here was a holiday set up by God through Moses called First Fruits. And in the New Covenant, First Fruits is mentioned several times by Paul, that Jesus is our first fruits. And that we become the first fruits also from among the dead beside him. And so he was not only our sin offering with his blood, he was also our wave offering. This is a wave offering of barley. And what they do is they'd wave it to be acceptable before they ate any barley. They'd wave that barley before the Lord on first fruits, the first day of the week after, or the Sabbath, the day after the Great Sabbath. Now, Jesus, when he arose from the dead, Mary came to him, and she started to get a hold of his feet, and he said, no, don't touch me, because I haven't been yet to my Father and your Father. Now, why did he say that to her? Because he had to present his body. If you remember when he talked there, many times he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. You remember him saying that? And where was he born? Bethlehem, house of bread. Everything points to him being this offering of grain offering, not just the blood offering, but he was also the wave offering of the first fruits. His body was the first fruits from among the dead of all the people that rise from the dead. Now I know Elijah rose and went straight up to heaven. I know Enoch rose and went straight up to heaven. I know there's several people in the Old Testament in times that walked the earth and then died and rose again. But they died again. Okay? Jesus is the only one that died and then didn't come back alive and didn't die again. Now, sure, Enoch went up and he didn't die. Elijah went up, he didn't die. But Jesus died and he came to life and he didn't die again. Okay? So he presented his body a wave offering, a first fruits offering. And what did he do on this day, on the Great Sabbath? What did he do then? He died. He celebrated the Passover, and then he was tried and died in here on that Good Friday. What did he do?
He went up to heaven and offered his
no. What did he do on the Great Sabbath? Where'd he go?
hell.
He went to hell. What did he do there? He preached to the souls, the souls that were before the flood. He preached to them. And what did he come back with?
Souls.
He came back with souls, but he also came back with the keys to death and hell. And that's why this Great Sabbath is so important. How do I know it's a Great Sabbath? If you remember when they went to break the legs of the two people on either side of him, they went to Jesus or Yeshua and they couldn't break his legs. Why?
He was already dead.
Oh, he's already dead. Why were they breaking their legs for?
They wouldn't be on the cross on the Sabbath.
So they wouldn't be on a tree, which is a curse to hang on a tree, because it was a high holy day. It wasn't just the Sabbath, it was the Great Sabbath. Okay? So that's how you know what I'm saying is true. Now, this may give you questions, but here's what you need to understand. Biblical days start at sundown. If you don't believe me, read Genesis chapter 1. In the morning and the evening was the first day. In the morning and the evening was the evening and morning, was the second day. Evening, morning, the third day. Passover starts at twilight. When's twilight?
Right after
When the sun sets on the horizon till it goes all the way down the horizon. It's dark. So that Passover's at twilight. Remember, I've got this red right here. This little piece right here. It's at the twilight. And then it's dark and it becomes the next day at dark. That's why that's brown there. And then unleavened bread is after that for 7 days. Why would we do unleavened bread? Because we're supposed to get the sin out. You know, I've heard a lot of people say, once saved, always saved. And listen, I believe in that. But that doesn't give you a license to keep on sinning. I used to work and go into the jail, and I'd say, let me borrow your arm. And I said, what are you going to do to my arm? And I said, I'm going to pinch it. How hard can she pinch? He said, yeah, sure. Here's my arm, one of those big tough guys. So I pinched his arm, said, I'm sorry. Now I pinched it right in the same place again, a little harder, and said, I'm sorry. And I pinched it again, even harder still, and said, I'm sorry. And I pinched it again, harder still, till he said, ouch, and said, I'm sorry. And he said, wait a minute. I pinched it again really hard, and he said, ouch. He said, I'm sorry. He said, no, you're not sorry. And I said, I'm saying I'm sorry. And he said, you're not sorry. I said, why am I not sorry? I'm saying I'm sorry. And they all said, because you're still pinching. Well, that's what we're not supposed to be doing. We're supposed to get the sin out. Do you know the Jews go around with a feather? The male of the house is in charge, and he goes around with a feather looking for any crumb of any leaven in the house to get it out of the house before Passover. Yeah, and for 7 days you do without leaven, not Lent, leaven, and not 40 days before Easter, 7 days after Passover. And during that 7-day period, there's always a great Sabbath, and there's always a resurrection day. So there's not one holiday in the spring. There are four. Everybody knows about Pentecost, but I'm talking about these three. Passover, the unleavened bread with the great Sabbath in it, and then resurrection day. How about that? So we're in this one right here. We still got days of unleavened bread to teach us to do what? Get the sin out. God doesn't like it. And then first fruits of the resurrection. So that's what we're talking about. That's the holy days that we're talking about. Now you didn't